It is February the 5th, 2016. It is Open Thighs Friday, and this is the Hard Starboard Radio Network at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network. I'm your host, Jasmius, your ruler, your benevolent despot, your fount, your rabbi, excuse me, of conservatism, constitutionalism, Christianity, and common sense. No, I didn't get any on me, and I didn't get any on you, so don't panic. Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Guest call-in number 646-478-5068. Email address jasmius@comcast.net. The chat room is open. And speaking of that email address, jasmius@comcast.net, JASMIUS @COMCAST.net. That is the source of any or all of the 200 episodes of Constitution Radio on podcast. During the 200 episode run, 3.5+ year run of Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs on KCAA AM 1050. So just specify what dates you want. I'll be happy to send them to you in the reply. Any of the coming up on 9 years, May the 26th, worth of podcasts here at Hard Starboard Radio, blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network. They're all right there in front of you, whether live or on the podcast. You are here, and so are they. Have at it. Help yourself. I heartily endorse and recommend that you do so. If you want all of them, it's going to take a while. I hope you have a really, really high-speed internet connection, because you're talking probably 1,000 podcasts on this show page. And then over at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review, production of the Hard Starboard Radio Network, a podcast airing Saturday afternoons, of course, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. The first 2 hours of the 3-hour Saturday afternoon radio extravaganza, the best radio program that nobody knows about. Well, very few people know about compared, to, like, Limbaugh, Hannity, Michael Savage, Hugh Hewitt, Michael Medved, Mark Levin, compared to Laura Ingraham. I don't really think about Laura Ingraham much anymore because she's a Trump maniac, so she's hopeless. But there are some recovering Trump maniacs among the formerly conservative talk radio pantheon. The aforementioned Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin are examples. And apparently it took Donald Trump taking great big dumps on Ted Cruz to finally get it through to them that, hey, wait a minute, this guy's not conservative. Gee, what was your first clue? Ugh. But we are the show, the best show that on a national level nobody's heard of. And it would be so nice if that would change, and we would get our due, and we would get our break. And it would be so nice if I got to be a part of it. Because if what Mr. Gibbs was telling me, and it was on the podcast last Saturday on American Daily Review, if Mr. Gibbs, Douglas V. Gibbs, the co-host of American Daily Review, and then in the third hour we switch venues, go to AM radio on KMET 1490 AM, KMET1490am.com, for Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, wherein we switch seats. Doug takes the center seat, the host seat, and I switch over to the first officer position. And then we roll on with the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week, for all 3 hours on 2 venues. All-Star Collision, part of the CarStar Network, national network for auto body and detailing work. And then they bring you the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week each week. All-Star Collision, located at 522 Railroad Street in Corona, California. If you have any auto body detailing and repair needs, and you know the kind I'm talking about, it's scratching your door, denting your fender, the tacoing of your either front or back or both fenders or bumpers. That's the term I was looking for. An entire caved-in trunk, a sunroof you weren't planning on. The Patriots at All-Star Collision are the only place to go in the Gibbs pocket of Southern California. Their web address, allstarci.com, to find out who they are, what they have going on, what they're all about. To speak to a live Patriot, call 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of wreck and roll. They are our partners. They are our sponsors. They are the reason we are still on the air. And same thing with KMET. You know, I've talked about this before. The KCAA, they looked at us as their token conservative program. That was it. A station that leaves no listener behind. Well, then they left us behind, so, you know, that's their loss. But KMET, they're our partners, they're our supporters. The idea is we both grow together. But again, well, that was the idea. It might still be the idea. You never know what iron in the fire is going to turn into a Roman candle. But as I say, you can, Mr. Gibbs, Douglas V. Gibbs, the director for the Center for the Study of the United States Constitution, the fellow of the American Freedom Alliance, based on what he said on the American Daily Review podcast last Saturday, the big radio break may not be Constitution Radio and may not involve me. Maybe Doug and Mr. John Hancock. And on a different station. And I might be made part of the program once it's on LA radio, and then once it gets a second hour, and it's like, okay, I think I can see where this is headed. I'm to be left on the shore, left behind after all the big talk for all these years. That's what I heard, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, there's nothing I can do about it, nothing I can say about it. I mean, I don't have any, once again, it's like every other, my entire life, I never had leverage. I think that's what I would like to have, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to have leverage. Just once. Leverage where it really counts. The leverage to be able to say, no, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do it in the way that benefits me. I don't care. I mean, never in my entire life have I ever had leverage. I've always been at somebody else's mercy. And now, in the what I'm talking about now, I'm at Mr. Gibbs's mercy. And you know what? In this case, it wouldn't even be at Mr. Gibbs's mercy. It would be at John Hancock's mercy. Because if that hypothetical radio program on LA radio that Doug was talking about last Saturday, it would be Doug and John Hancock, and that wouldn't even be Doug's call. The opportunity would be coming from somebody else, in which Doug would get the big break, and I'd be left behind. So I wouldn't even be Doug's call. That would not even be Doug's call. That would be John Hancock's call. And, of course, John Hancock doesn't know me from any... Well, Adam, pick your expression. You get the idea. Because I'm sitting 1,200 miles up the coast, all by myself, whiling away my days, trying to convince myself and keep myself convinced that I have something productive to do, that I can contribute, keeping the lights on at politicalpistachio.com, keeping American Daily Review on the air, co-hosting and guest hosting for Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. Saturdays for 3 hours, beginning 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. I keep telling myself that, and the reason I keep doing that is because if I didn't, what would I'd be watching TV all day. And I probably would have gone postal a long time ago. It's the only thing that gives my life meaning. It's the only thing that gives my life the illusion of purpose. And I don't earn a frickin' dime from it. And it'd be nice if I could. And that's one of the reasons, and you may not like hearing it, but sorry, it's one of the reasons why I come here every day and host this podcast for all of you. And in the process, one of the fringe benefits of it is that I get to vent, because I tend to hold things in. I don't get them out. You know, this is an opportunity to do that, and if that is disagreeable to any of you, well, it's not deliberately meant to create that effect, then it helps me cope. And that you know, there's so few things that are going right and have been going right for the past 2.5 years that you know, anything that I can do that is within my power to do that helps me, I'm not going to pass up the opportunity, no matter how small it may be. I don't get the big things to go right for me, so if I can even do the smallest things in my own favor, I'm going to do them. So just be patient and be gentle with me. Anyway, 6.5 years worth of podcasts at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. Another edition of which coming up tomorrow. Let's see, what is it? 19 hours and 37 minutes from right now. So you won't want to miss that. And we'll have another All-Star Coalition Big Stories of the Week, because this crapola just never slows down. And hey, it's an election year! So, yeah, we got election year stuff to talk about today, which we shall do. And then every edition of Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs since we moved to KMET 1490am.com last May the 2nd, available at KMET1490am.com. On the main page, highlight the show's drop-down menu at the top of the screen, and then click on Saturdays. It takes you to the Saturday schedule. Scroll down to the Constitution Radio line. Click on that. Takes you to our show page. Lower left-hand corner, it says Podcasts. Click on that. They're all there for you. All there. I'm not quite sure how to navigate to the videocast page. But you can get there by some... See, I've got the direct link, so I don't bother navigating to it. But all our videocasts are there as well. So that's why, you know, Skype does have a video part as well. So that's its purpose, and our ruggedly handsome features are on display every Saturday, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And actually, I can't get started on the uploads. Oh, I might be able to get one started anyway. To our YouTube channels, youtube.com/HeartStarboardRadio, youtube.com/American Daily Review 2, because I have to take intern Missius over to the train station. Yeah, there might be time to get one started. I'll see what I can do about that. And I think we've not only set the table, but knocked one or two of the legs out from under it. So why don't we get started? What do you say? Yes, Hard Starboard Radio, the acquired taste, or the taste you should acquire. Does that work? That work out better? Well, there is, and again, this is another one of those stories that is not news, really, for anybody who's been paying attention the past 7 years, but was in the news, so it obligates me as a commentator in Pixels and on the air to report it anyway. So here's the headline. New Obama policy forces Border Patrol agents to release all illegal aliens. Yeah, it's not border. They're just going to abolish the Border Patrol. That'd be too straightforward. That would make sense in the sense of the Obama administration's immigration/border policy, which is come on in. No, they still deploy the Border Patrol, and they still go out and patrol the border. But according to this new Obama policy, when they catch an illegal alien or illegal aliens, if they're in a bunch, if they catch them, they have to turn around and release them. You can't even take them into custody. It isn't even catch and release anymore. It's just release. Yeah, even that doesn't work, because release implies you caught them. You release somebody after you've had them in your control, right? What would be the word? Wave them on in. The same way the TSA works. If you're wearing a rag on your head, don't even bother. Just go on in. Come on in. But if you're, Caucasian, if you're a little blue-haired old grandmother, if you're a 3-year-old with a crappy diaper, then no, you gotta get the happy hands treatment, or the nudie scanner. But if you're swarthy, then no problem. You don't even have to bother. Just come on in. It's the same thing. It is the exact same thing. Now, there really haven't functionally been any U.S. immigration laws for a number of years now. And this just makes it even more overtly official. The quote comes to us from Newsmax.com. New federal stand-down order. Stand down. It sounds like the Baltimore Police Department, doesn't it? Stand, or the Ferguson Police Department, for that matter. Stand down. Mm-hmm. A new federal stand-down order forces. You thought I was making that up, didn't you? Forces Border Patrol agents to release illegal aliens they arrest, and bans the agents from ordering their return to a deportation hearing, according to the head of the agents' labor union. By the way, the only labor union in the country that, or for which I have any sympathy. Is there any group for whom collective bargaining is done that is treated worse than the Border Patrol Union, the Border Patrol Agency, whatever the name of it is? I mean, they have one of, there seems to be a lot of thankless jobs in this country. In the age of the one, I was going to say the Obama era, but the age of the one it sounds better. Lots of thankless jobs. It's hard to imagine one that's more futile than the Border Patrol. Now, the latter part of that, the banning the agents, Border Patrol agents, from ordering their illegal aliens return to a deportation hearing, that's actually much less of a deal than it might sound, since, of course, 95+% of illegals never show up for their deportation hearings anyway. I mean, that's just kind of requiring Border Patrol agents to just be honest. Yeah, we're not even going to bother to tell you because we know you're not going to show up anyway. It's the forcing of Border Patrol agents to turn them loose in the first place that's the outrage. But it's entirely consistent, and it really is. It's just being more honest. Well, why bother catching him? Because we're just going to make you turn him loose anyway. So, immigration laws today appear to be mere suggestions. There are little to no consequences for breaking the laws, and that fact is well known in other countries. Brandon Judd, president of the National Border Patrol Council, okay, that's what it's called, said in testimony before the House Subcommittee on Immigration and Border Security yesterday. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about incentives. Nullify U.S. immigration laws, as the Obama regime has illegally and unconstitutionally done, and the incentives for ever larger hordes of passive invaders to pour across the former border skyrocket. Reverse those incentives, as I seem to recall Mitt Romney suggesting 4 years ago with his eminently sensible self-deportation idea, and the influx would dwindle and even reverse itself. It's demonstrable. Incentives work when properly applied, ladies and gentlemen. If government agencies like the Commissariat of Homeland Insecurity or Customs and Border Reduction, protection. Well, sorry, I had this instinct for truth and labeling, so you just have to bear with me. If they are allowed to bypass Congress by legislating through policy, we might as well abolish our immigration laws altogether, Brandon Judd added. And, yeah, we could, but I mean, haven't they pretty much been abolished already in practice? I mean, sure, they're on the books, but if the executive branch is not going to enforce them, aren't they effectively nullified as it is? Obama's got what he wanted on immigration policy. He's just not enforcing the immigration laws, period. Again, this new policy just makes it more honest. Transparent. Hey, you wanted transparency from the Obama administration? Here you go. You might even call this running up the score. Simply put, the new policy makes mandatory the release without a notice to appear of any... In fact, Border Patrol agents are calling it a notice to disappear. Again, truth, and it might sound like sarcasm, but it's truth in labeling. Simply put, the new policy makes mandatory the release without a notice to appear of any person arrested by the Border Patrol for being in the country illegally, as long as they do not have a previous felony arrest and conviction, and as long as they claim, not as long as they can prove, but as long as they can claim to have been continuously in the United States since January of 2014. So a little over 2 years. The operative word in this policy is claim, Brandon Judd added. The policy does not require the person to prove they've been here, which is the same burden placed on them during deportation. Instead, it simply requires them to claim to have been here since January of 2014. And, of course, I guess. I mean, because in the age of the one in which the only honor is among thieves, that's the only possible manifestation of the honor system. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant el sistema de honor. Los sentimos idioma incorrecto. Which, loosely translated, means, well, sorry for the mislabeling or something like that. Now, as Mr. Judd said, agents not only are ordered to release the illegal aliens, they do so without any means of tracking their whereabouts. Well, it sounds just like visa overstayers, which is actually the source of 2/3 of all the illegal aliens in the country. Yeah, that's right. Roughly a third come from sneaking across the border. The other 2/3 come from overstaying visas. And, of course, DHS has no means of tracking any of them either. Once they're in the country, whoops! They have no idea, have no means of tracking them. So, is it any surprise the Border Patrol can't track illegals once they've been released into the interior of the country? And, it's natural. I mean, in a country where aliens are citizens and citizens are aliens, it's the citizens that are tracked while the aliens roam free. And, of course, elect Democrats. Our mass deportation, ours, yours and mine, folks, deportation notices will be arriving any day now, I imagine. Certainly by... or before January 20th, 2017. The only questions are when the Obama regime will start rounding us up and to where we'll be shipped off. Or maybe they're just waiting until all of Latin America has been completely depopulated and relocated to this country, and then they'll just ship us off to repopulate South America. I don't know. I try to, mentally project. Okay, where would they send us? Huh? I don't know. I mean, but it would make sense. I mean, Barack Obama's trying to import Latin America entirely into this country, so wouldn't that be a logical place to send all of us? He wants to have his one-party communist state. That's how he's doing it. Ship out enemies of the state at the same time. Well, speaking of Barack Obama putting himself back in the news, reminding everybody, like I've been saying for the past 3 years, Barack Obama is no lame duck. I mean, I know it's cliche, I know it's, oh, well, he's in the last 2 years of a two-term presidency. Of course he's a lame duck. He's not running for any office again, and no more elections, not even any indirectly like in the like midterm elections. Just trust me. I've said this. I'll say it again. He's no lame duck. I just gave you an example of it. Here's another. Barack Obama has found a way to raise oil prices and bankrupt big oil at the same time. Or well, it really isn't bankrupting big oil. It's further bankrupting the American people. The closer to the bottom end of the income scale, the more bankrupt we'll get. And since that's not getting the job, of course I'm referring to tight drilling regulations, killing the Keystone XL pipeline, since those things are not getting the job of bringing us $10 per gallon pump prices done, President Solyndra is opting for a more direct approach. Oh man, like I say, this is not news to anybody who's been paying attention, but it was a news item, so I have to write about it and talk about it here on the Heart Starboard Radio Network. This quote also from Newsmax. Barack Obama wants oil companies to pay a $10 tax for every barrel of oil to help fund investments in clean, i.e. no, transportation. Oh, I just realized something. Clean rhymes with green. Oh, yeah, of course it does. This is what Sesame Street has been reduced to, by the way. By the way, as far as Sesame Street is concerned, when are they going to announce that Big Bird and Snuffleupagus are gay lovers? I mean, it's got to be coming sooner or later, right? Doesn't it have to be? Or that Oscar the Grouch is really a pimp. That reminds me of Mad Magazine had a riff on, they did a parody of Sesame Street back in the 70s. They called it Reality Street. And I remember the parody lyrics to the opening theme. I think I do. Oh yeah, it went smoggy day, cloudy skies, charcoal gray, on my way to where the bullies meet. Oh, can you tell me how to avoid Reality Street? Oh, I'd like to avoid Reality Street the last 2.5 years. Boy, would I ever. But yeah, clean, green, it's no transportation. Whenever you hear clean energy or green energy, it's no energy or anti-energy. Because, of course, wind is not a practical... I mean, for a small community, if you're in a windy area, maybe, but not for a continental nation. It's just not practical. And wind is not a dependable source of energy. It's not consistent. You're at the mercy of the elements. And, of course, nuclear power, maybe in another 50 years, when we have the technology to actually collect solar power and store it efficiently, but we don't have that yet. It's years and probably several decades away, so that's not practical either. In terms of what's practical right now is fossil fuels. And that's what the Obama regime is bound and determined to shut down. And you know what? If let's say we make a breakthrough in nuclear fusion, efficient, cheap, practical nuclear fusion energy. That would be what the green extremists would shut down next. They're going to shut down anything that actually provides cheap, economical, plentiful energy to the American people, because these people are anti-energy. Remember, they were anti-nuclear in the 70s and 80s. Now they're anti-fossil fuels since 90s and the last decade and into this decade. It's what actually works that they're against. So mark my words, if solar power became plentiful, practical, economical, cheap, plentiful, they'd be against solar power. They're anti-energy. Whatever the source is, that's what they're against. But Barack Obama wants oil companies to pay a $10 tax for every barrel of oil to help fund investments. Investments. Oh, boy. In clean, i.e. no, transportation. Obama will formalize the proposal, proposal in quotes, next Tuesday when he releases his final budget request to Congress. The $10 per barrel fee is expected to be dead on arrival among Republicans who control Congress and oppose new taxes and Obama's anti-energy policies. Still, the White House hopes the proposal will drive a debate. In other words, it's a sop to his left-wing nut extremist base about the need to get energy producers to help fund efforts to fight climate change. Now that is to say, steal more money from already impoverished American consumers, already mired in unemployment and economic misery, who need and want cheap gas to fuel their cars and heat and power their homes. By the way, did I mention I had a $200 electricity bill last month? Yeah, it's winter, but still. And then this is in Western Washington, where we have a lot of hydropower too. Still $200+ electricity bill. $200 I'll never see again. And for whom the current low oil prices are a blessing, in order to force them to pay for yet more exorbitant, unwanted, inefficient, impractical, Oh, I said unwanted twice. Okay, well. I'll leave it. No, I don't want to leave it. I don't want to leave it because I suppose it'd be like hey, did you find this in that? And then if you did, and well, you wouldn't get any prize out of it. So anyway, force us to pay for green boondoggles like traffic reduction, high-speed rail, cutting carbon dioxide emissions within regional transportation systems, and self-driving electric cars. Another even more ham-fisted, jackbooted attempt to force us out of our cars and into public transit and onto bicycles and hippity-hops and make every American city look like Hanoi and Saigon. I'd say Beijing, but I prefer that we didn't have tanks on our streets. Gee, thanks, Barry, but screw you. All right, just up your, what was that expression from Welcome Back, Kotter? Up your nose with a rubber hose. Yeah, they had to say no's in the 70s. And that, by the way, is the preemptive collective response from the majority party on Capitol Hill. Here's a number of their quotes. Congressional Republicans vowed yesterday to kill Barack Obama's plan to add a $10 per barrel tax on oil production to pay for green transportation projects, with House Speaker Paul Ryan calling it dead on arrival and an election year distraction. Barack Obama expects hard-working consumers to pay for his out-of-touch climate agenda, the Wisconsin Republican said. A $10 tax for every barrel of oil produced would raise energy prices, hurting poor Americans the most. This announcement proves that Barack Obama is still on a mission to destroy a major backbone of the U.S. economy. Obama should be proposing policies to grow our economy instead of sacrificing it to appease communist climate extremists. Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton said Obama's plan would be laughable if it didn't illustrate just how much he's lost touch with reality over the past 7 years. While his plan might be applauded by environmentalists and big city liberals, it would be a nightmare for working families. This proposal would effectively double the gas tax at a time when Arkansas families, well, he's from Arkansas, so that's how he's a senator, remember, are enjoying more affordable gas prices. Worse, that tax would unfairly target people in rural states like Arkansas who use more gasoline. House Majority Whip Stephen Scalise, or Scalise, whichever pronunciation it is, also repeated the dead on arrival pledge. From day one of Barack Obama's administration, he has waged open war on American energy, and his radical policies have cost jobs while increasing costs on hard-working families. Washington's spending is already too high, and the best way to create more jobs and get our economy back on track is by cutting taxes and controlling spending. I wish he would have said cutting spending. Freudian slip? Hope not. Oklahoma Senator Jim Inhofe, chairman of the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, said the tax would extinguish the only job growth sector in the American economy. One of the only bright spots in Barack Obama's anemic economy has been the jobs created by the oil and natural gas production industry, which has grown despite his policies. It is no surprise his communist leadership and petty partisanship would try to extinguish that economic contributor as well. He said lack of leadership, and no, he's not lacking leadership, he's just leading in the wrong direction. I always feel the need to edit that appropriately. Frankly, I'm unsure why Obama bothers to continue to send a budget to Congress, Inhofe continued. He never submits one that balances. Of course, Congress never passes one that balances either. And even his own party members have not voted against it. They're not only voted against it, but against it unanimously. America is ready for a new president. Yeah, we are ready for a new president, aren't we? Unfortunately, it's clear that Ryan and Cotton and Scalise and Inhofe et al. Still don't realize what is happening here. For all that we're obsessing over the 2016 election, and I'm doing it too. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm part of it too. But the fact of the matter is that is all ultimately a distraction. America is not going to get a new president because the current one isn't going anywhere. Just as his $10 a barrel oil tax isn't just a proposal he's including in his budget, but a notification of his next round of executive orders. Imperial decrees, presidential diktats, what have you, whatever you want to call it. And Is anyone going to doubt that? I mean, he wanted cap and trade back in 2009, 2010, in his first biennium. He wanted cap and trade, right? Even that Congress, even the Democrat Super Congress of 2009 and 2010 wouldn't pass cap and trade. It passed in the House, didn't get out of the Senate. So what did Barack Obama do? He imposed it by executive order. Remember? Or through the bureaucracy, through the EPA, just writing it into their regulations. That was never enacted. That was never legislated constitutionally. The Obama administration just, through the EPA, just imposed it bureaucratically. The idea that Obama ruling by executive order is a relatively recent thing, or even a second-term phenomenon. No, it's not. He's been doing it for the past 7 years. So does anybody doubt, for one single solitary minute, I mean, this proposal is dead on arrival in Congress. It's not going anywhere. It's not even going to get out of committee. It's not even going to be proposed. I mean, the Democrats might try to, the minority Democrats might try to propose it. It's not going anywhere. But Barack Obama is just going to impose it bureaucratically. You know it as well as I do. If Congress won't act, I will. Congress doesn't follow orders, then he'll just do it unilaterally. I got a pen and I've got a phone. You think he won't do it? Of course he will. This effective doubling of the gas tax will be imposed, will be forced on us, will be shoved down our throats, no matter what Congress thinks of it. They and we are powerless to resist. Obama is simply bestowing the gratuitously taunting courtesy of rubbing it in our faces in advance. But don't worry, my friends. I'm sure that Congress and/or the states and/or the imperiled energy industry will have their futile, time-wasting lawsuits against it in federal court on the launching pads, all ready to go. And 2 minutes and change before the break. In hour number 2, we'll get to the campaign-related items. And just as a kind of a sneak preview, if you were watching the Democrat debate last night, boy, isn't it fun to watch how much Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders hate each other? They were going at it. I really hope they had the EMTs right there in the building, because the way that Mrs. Clinton was screeching at Weekend Bernie, I mean, we all know about her hidden health issues, about how when she's done at an event, she has to be carried back to her car. I mean, she is literally killing herself trying to reach the White House in her own right. And of course, Bernie Sanders, or as Samantha Bee pronounces it, Bernie Sanders. If he didn't have that podium, he would fall flat on his face. That podium holds him up, ladies and gentlemen. I noticed that from as soon as he got into the race. When someone took the unfortunate camera angle from behind the podium, kind of off to the side, looking at it at like a 45-degree angle, but you could see that Sanders was literally leaning against the podium. And you notice you don't see pictures taken from that angle anymore. I think the word got around that he's 74 years old, man, and Hillary Clinton will be 70 next year. I mean, but the way they were shouting and screeching at each other. It's like, boy, we could see both of them carried off that stage on stretchers before the night's out. We'll get into the details of that after these top-of-the-hour faux commercial words on the Hard Starboard Radio Network on Open Thighs Friday, February the 5th, 2016. Hold on! Whoop, whoop, whoop. Okay, now hold on. Final hour of the week here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network. Open Thighs Friday. And now down to 18 hours and 52 minutes until the next Saturday afternoon radio extravaganza comes round yet again. 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, beginning at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. As the late Freddie Miller used to say on the old Georgia Championship Wrestling program on Turner Broadcast, oh, no, it was WTCG. Yeah, and then that was what became WTBS, and then it became TBS, Turner Broadcasting System. Anyway, Freddie Miller always, when he was doing Georgia Championship Wrestling promos for the next big card at the old Omni in Atlanta, which was torn down years ago, as I recall. Now it's the Phillips Arena, but that's a different building. But he would always say, "Don't miss it. Be there." Well, be there at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review tomorrow, only 18 hours and 51 minutes from now, for another Saturday afternoon radio extravaganza, starting with American Daily Review. Now, did I mention that Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton hate each other? Or at least that's sure what it looked like last night. Now, she hates him because he's inexorably taking away her last chance of moving back into the White House, and he's not 30 years younger and a well-spoken, clean-cut Negro like the guy that did this to her the last time. Whereas Bernie Sanders hates Hillary Clinton because, well, doesn't everybody? There's so many reasons to do so, after all. Yeah, I tell you, they sure sounded like they hate each other last night, given how aggressively they went after each other. Although it was hard to focus on their genuine or calculated animus, given that it had the dual flavor of, "Hey, you kids, get off my lawn!" and any of 15 conversations in the nursing home dining room when nobody has their hearing aids turned up. And trust me, that's one of my dad's pet peeves. It was when he was at Colonial Vista Retirement, and now that he's at and when he was at Silver Creek Assisted Living, and now that he's at Cedar Ridge Assisted Living. He complains about that all the time. These people sit around and they're just so loud. He's talking at the top of their lungs because they can't hear each other. When he goes down for meals, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, he takes earplugs because the other residents are so loud it hurts his ears. There's nothing wrong with my dad's ears. Nothing wrong with it. Well, nothing wrong anymore since he got his cataracts removed. But it's too loud for him. You know, he says, "Oh, listen to these people hold conversations. They shout at the top of the lungs, at the top of their lungs to each other, and then they say, huh, huh. I didn't hear you. What?" That's what that Democrat debate was last night. I mean, Alan McNew, one of our contributors at politicalpistachio.com, had a lot of fun with what did he call it? It's on the list here. Yeah, Bernie and the Clintons, the party of old white people. It's true. It true. I mean, really, can you imagine? I mean, God willing, we're going to get either Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz as the GOP nominee. Next generation, young, dynamic, charismatic. Who are the Democrats going to put up? A 70-year-old grandma or a 74, or by that time, 75-year-old? I guess I don't know if Weekend Bernie is a grandpa. But that wouldn't be because he's not old enough to be one. He's old enough to be a great-grandfather. I mean, two people from the old folks' home versus young, dynamic, charismatic. I mean, it would be the flipped side of 2008, wouldn't it? 2008, we put up John McCain. John McCain is like, what is he? Is he in his 80s by now? If he isn't, he's close to it. And the Democrats put up young, telegenic, charismatic, well-spoken, articulate Barack. I mean, there's a reason why there are a lot of people calling Marco Rubio the Republican Obama. I got a backup item to go here. I might be able to cram it in. I might, who knows? I might even go long into a podcast-only third segment to get it in. But there'd be a lot to that. I mean, if it was... If this coming November is Rubio and Sanders, this time they've got the 75-year-old white guy who needs the podium to hold himself up. We will have the young, charismatic, telegenic, articulate, well-spoken, dynamic candidate. Yeah, it's like the in fact, let me just. I don't think I've had a chance to play this other than when I debuted it. Here's a little snippet of the Bernie Sanders update theme. Yeah, they're old. They're all old. And we really want to nominate Donald Trump. Match them in the age category. Eliminate age as an issue? I don't know. But that's something Sanders and, Rubio and Cruz can definitely exploit next fall all by itself, the age factor. If the Republican electorate makes it fully back to the land of sanity. towards which they took a significant step this past Monday in Iowa. But there was plenty of other future attack ad fodder from which to choose last night. This was from the Washington Post. Mrs. Clinton used her opening statement to needle the senator from Vermont, who describes himself as a socialist. He's honest about it. She's not. She's not honest about anything. Over what she has contended are unrealistically liberal plans for universal health care, free college, and other programs. I'm fighting for people who cannot wait for those changes, and I'm not making promises I can't keep, the former Commissar of State said. Sanders replied that a number of European countries had approved single-payer health care systems. I do not accept the belief that the United States of America cannot do that, he said. Now, in reality, folks, Mrs. Clinton is right. I know, you never believed I would ever say those words, but in this case, it's true. Mrs. Clinton is right about what she said. Even the Democrat Super Congress of 2009 and 2010 could barely shove Obamacare down the country's unwilling throat, and they couldn't even jam a public option into it. And Democrat supermajorities with a Democrat president only come along every third of a century or so, and the next one is probably decades away. But this isn't the general election. It's the New Hampshire Democrat primary. And Mrs. Clinton's left-wing nut audience doesn't want to hear what's realistic or what promises can or cannot be kept. They want to hear what they want to hear. And that she's going to, and tell me if this doesn't sound familiar, my Tea Party friends, they want to hear that she's going to fight for everything they want. Which begs the question of for what she's fighting, if not what her left-wing nut audience, whose vote she's desperate to get, is demanding. Like Weekend Bernie is. Point Sanders. As they had at a town hall forum the night before, you remember the one where she had that terrible, awful answer about, well, why did you need to take $675,000 from Goldman Sachs for 3 speeches? And she said, I don't know, that's what they offered. Oh, man. The 2 remaining Democrat presidential contenders also squabbled over the modern definition of the word progressive, which has become the preferred term for the Democrat left. You know, somebody should have said, isn't that a brand of spaghetti sauce? Oh, wait, that's Prego. Wait, no. No, soup. It's a brand of soup, right? Oh, yeah, that's right. Progresso. Yeah, well, close enough. It's just all a bunch of slop anyway. You know, and again, this is why I always edit out the word progressive and substitute the word communist. Because communist is so much more accurate. Progressive is just, it's self-congratulatory, self-back-patting nonsense. There's nothing progressive about the left. The left is regressive. So, well, now, yeah, you could say, well, why don't you just substitute the word regressive? Well, it'd be accurate, but in terms of a label, why not communist? I mean, term's been around for decades, right? Why not use that? Bolshevik would work too, I suppose. Which is why I always edit out the former for the latter. I'm a big believer, again, as I say, in mandatory truth and labeling. And I do not and will not permit the other side to try to put themselves over with such flagrant mendacity. A progressive is someone who makes progress, Mrs. Clinton said. Well, now that was nothing but a glib non-response. I mean, she's just taking the word progressive. Oh, well, the root of progressive is progress. I'll say that. No. No, a progressive is a communist. I mean, Bernie Sanders can call himself what he is. He's damn proud of it. But no, Mrs. Clinton has to hide behind masks and lies and so forth, which is why the left, the nut roots, can't stand her. She's not willing to admit it. Bernie Sanders is. Point Sanders. Now, Sanders, who enjoys enormous enthusiasm among the party's hard left base, because he's honest about what he is and what he believes, and is unabashedly champions it, doesn't have any of, or at least not nearly as much of, Hillary's scandal baggage. He continued to make the argument that Mrs. Clinton is too heavily dependent on those who have financed her campaign and made her personally wealthy. Just a second here, I gotta... where is that? Oh yeah, that's this one. That's one I didn't catch here. And away we go. Sanders continued to make the argument that Mrs. Clinton is too heavily dependent on those who have financed her campaign and made her personally wealthy. He said that he does not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. I am very proud to be the only candidate up here that does not have a super PAC. Well, that's a mixed bag for the Vermont senator, since it does bolster his authenticity, which is the heart of his appeal to Democrat voters. Of course, it also deprives him of the resources with which to fully compete with La Clinton Nostra nationwide, which is the only reason he's not already the Democrat nominee. And that may well start manifesting itself as we get past Iowa and New Hampshire, which, remember, let's see, the resources with which to, okay. And, Iowa, all by itself. New Hampshire, all by itself. Two small states where it's easy to just go there and just camp out, do nothing else but just blanket it, total saturation. South Carolina, somewhat larger state population-wise, and then you start having, you come up with Super Tuesday, or the SEC primaries, they're calling it this year, and you start having to be in 15 places at once, and that's where Mrs. Clinton's legendary, or urban legendary, $2.5 billion war chest starts coming into play. And there's some question, given that Sanders is here, he's boasting, well, I don't have any super PACs. Well, you might wish he did in a month or so from now. However, herself can always be counted on to keep coming to Weekend Bernie's rescue. Here's how she tried to spin them. So since the well, I'm just a little old grandma routine didn't work the night before at that town hall debate, Mrs. Clinton went back to her angry, screeching, best defense is a good offense, no matter how moronic it sounds, offense. Here's what she said. Mrs. Clinton accused Sanders of engaging in a very artful smear of her character. She insisted she had never changed her position on any issue on having received contributions from special interests. She said it. I'm sorry. I know, it's amazing. And to which all you need to say in response is 2 words: Clinton Foundation. I mean, you could see her nose growing right there on the stage, and everybody else could see it too. But then, this is, I mean, if you have no political skill set, if you are a terrible candidate, if you are an awful liar, and everybody knows all your lies, and you're not capable of mixing things up and getting creative, then when you get cornered like that, what are you going to say? Well, you do what, the only thing you know how to do. And that's what she's doing here. Just brazenly lying. Not convincingly, but brazenly, because she really doesn't have anything else to say. It's like I said yesterday. What she should have said to the why did you need to take $675,000 from Goldman Sachs for 3 speeches? What she should have done is apologize for it. Now, nobody would have bought that either, but hey, isn't that the ethos on the left these days? Been for quite a while now. If you apologize, well then that covers the whole thing. All you have to do is say, "I'm sorry, so sorry. Please accept my apologies," and that would have been the end of it. At least for a while. She didn't do that. She said, "Oh well, that's what I don't know. That's what they offered. I'm just a little old grandma." And so last night she goes back to, in essence, accusing Bernie Sanders of being a card-carrying member of the vast right-wing conspiracy. That's what it amounts to. I mean, Senator Sanders has said he wants to run a positive campaign. "I've tried to keep my disagreements over issues as it should be, but time and time again, by innuendo, by insinuation, there is this attack that he is putting forth." Well, it's an attack that he's not the only one that's making it. It's not just him. The left, the grassroots of the Democrat Party are making this insinuation too. That's why Hillary Clinton. We're going to get down to it here. There's something that's very interesting national poll came out today on the Democrat side from Quinnipiac. We'll get to this in a moment. But then I suppose that Hillary Clinton is right about what she said about how. Why, I've never changed a position on having received contributions from special interests, or as a result of receiving contributions or receiving money from special interests. Now, she's right in a way. I mean, she doesn't always need to be paid to switch issue stances. I mean, remember in that Democrat debate late 2007, when she, I think it was a question having to do with giving illegal aliens driver's licenses. And she was asked this, and remember, she flip-flopped 5 times in 3 minutes and 12 seconds. I found the video, posted at politicalpistachio.com, still on the main page. Go ahead and look it up for yourself. She switched positions 5 times in 3 minutes and 12 seconds. I mean, if she was getting paid for that, she probably made $1 million right there. Damnedest thing I've ever seen. But that's, I'll tell you what, I mean, that is an all-time classic for illustrating Hillary Clinton's character. 5 flip-flops in 3 minutes and 12 seconds. To the vast degree that Barack Obama wasn't simply a vastly superior candidate to her, this exchange was probably the rest of why she crashed and burned 8 years ago. That reputational stink has stuck to her ever since, which is why it is so effortless and obvious a target for even so manifestly non-Obama a candidate as Bernie Sanders. And it illustrates how terrible a candidate Hillary Clinton is that she can't even spin out from under the gambit when wielded by such a crazy, wild-eyed, elderly, white old bastard that just happens to be blowing her out by 30 points in the Granite State polls. Now, in the final analysis, I have to say that Hillary Clinton probably hates Bernie Sanders a bit more than he does her. Why is that? Well, he took a pass on hitting her on Emailgate, a topic about which the nutroots don't care in the slightest, of course. Or perhaps it's that he's more interested in kicking her when she's down effectively, rather than just indiscriminately. In which case, mission accomplished. And now, here's what I just teased mere moments ago. Could this be the long-awaited Hillary Clinton implosion? Well, this is from Quinnipiac. In the Democrat race, nationwide, former Commissar of State Hillary Clinton has 44% support, with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders at 42%. 44 for Hillary, 42 for Bernie Sanders. Nationally, 11% undecided. And I know that only adds up to 97, so what about the other three? None of the above, I guess. Now, this compares with a 61% to 30% Hillary Clinton lead just 6 weeks ago. Let's think, 9, 40, 45, 6.5 weeks ago. She was up 61% to 30% 6 weeks ago. Now they're in a statistical tie nationally, according to Quinnipiac. Democrats nationwide are feeling the burn as Senator Bernie Sanders closes a 31-point deficit to tie Commissar Hillary Clinton, said Tim Malloy, assistant director of the Quinnipiac University poll. End of quote. That is a 29-point collapse in 6 weeks. What have I said all along, ladies and gentlemen? What I've been saying for the past 3 years, the more visible Hillary Clinton is, the worse her poll numbers get. And she can't send Bill Clinton out in her place for the entire campaign. She can't, and she's not, and besides, she's not even letting Bill participate on campaign conference calls anymore because he keeps offering advice that she doesn't want to hear. Yeah, why would she take advice from a guy who won 2 national elections? What does he know about politics? No, she wants to do it herself because she can't take advice. She's already the smartest person on the face of the earth. I know, it's blasphemy to God Obama, but try telling her that. I mean, but the more visible she gets, the worse she does. I mean, she's unlikable. She's abrasive. She's arrogant. I mean, she can't lie very well. She can't lie. She's a terrible liar. You know, she has no political skill set. She doesn't relate to people. She doesn't connect with people. She's off-putting. She's alienating. She's aggravating. Nurse Ratchet-esque. You know, she doesn't have majority support among Democrat women voters. Now, she's still 10 points ahead of Sanders with Democrat women, but she's below 50% with them. So much, again, for what has always been the core argument of her candidacy, inevitability. In fact, these collapses are what are inevitable. You know, I mean, yeah, you know, when Elizabeth Warren didn't get into the race last summer, I was thinking, well, maybe, I guess, there really isn't anybody else. But Bernie Sanders got into the race anyway, and then he started gaining on her, passed her up in New Hampshire last summer, and then caught her in Iowa over the last fall, then fell behind again, but then caught her again and tied her in Iowa this past Monday, and now he's way, way ahead. 20 or 30 points ahead of New Hampshire, and now we get this national poll. Now, national polls are not directly irrelevant because primary elections, there's no such thing as a national primary election. It goes state by state by state by state by state. But it is a barometer of the overall state of the race. Now, this is the first poll that has shown this, so maybe it's an outlier, maybe it's an aberration, or maybe it's the leading edge of where the Democrat race is headed, in which case, oh boy, you know, we talked recently, a number of occasions, about how the Clinton campaign is in a panic, about how Democrats are you know, panicking, heading for the exits, fleeing the SS Clintanic again. Like I said, I mean, 2008, she could rationalize that, well, Barack Obama was a tremendous candidate, a once in a generation talent that came along at the wrong time for me. But I'll run again in 2016, and there will be nobody to stop me then. Well, now and I've said for the past 3 years, Hillary Clinton will not be the Democrat presidential nominee. She's a terrible candidate, and Democrats don't believe in her. They don't trust her. They don't like her. And she will not be the nominee. And now, we've arrived at perhaps the long-awaited Hillary Clinton implosion. 29 points in 6 weeks nationwide. You know, the notion that she was electable was always a joke, but this Quinnipiac poll's general election hypotheticals reiterate that as well. Bernie Sanders is doing 4 points better than Hillary Clinton versus Ted Cruz, 7 points better than Hillary versus Marco Rubio, and 5 points better than Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. So on average, in terms of electability, according to this Quinnipiac survey, Bernie Sanders is 5.3 points better than Hillary Clinton next November. That's not insignificant, ladies and gentlemen. Just as it's hard not to notice that Marco Rubio does, on average, 5.5 points better than Ted Cruz and 11 points better in average general election matchups versus either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders than Donald Trump does. Now, if the idea of an election is to win it, I know, what a novel concept, right? Then Bernie Sanders and Marco Rubio would appear to be the way to go for their respective parties. And again, I don't take that as an endorsement of Marco Rubio. I gave my endorsement 2+ years ago, and I said Scott Walker for president. We saw what happened with how that worked out. So I'm not endorsing Rubio, folks. The only endorsement I've made is an endorsement of everybody but Donald Trump. I've said that the last 2 Saturdays on KMET. If it's Trump, I'm not. I'll write in Scott Walker. If there are 2 Democrats on the ballot for president, why vote for either one of them? Just because one has an R after his name, there's no point. But Rubio or Sanders, either, whichever one emerges. And actually, in Rubio, polls are showing that Rubio will be slightly ahead in a 3-way race, and he leads, I think, in a head-to-head against Ted Cruz. Rubio is 6 points ahead, and a head-to-head with Donald Trump, he's 12 points ahead. That's just what the polls show. And the idea is to win. And if polls are showing that one guy, and like we talked about it yesterday, about how Marco Rubio is not an establishment rhino squish. He made a horrible rookie mistake on comprehensive immigration reform. Has he learned his lesson on that? Maybe he has. Maybe he hasn't. He made another one last summer by running up the white flag on gay marriage. So I don't challenge any of that. But what I am saying is that he is not. That doesn't make him establishment. Everyone is putting him in that category. And like Rush Limbaugh pointed out yesterday, Marco Rubio is. Well, Charles Krauthammer, I think, put it best. He is a mainstream, well, he used the term mainstream conservative, not mainstream Republican, mainstream conservative, which is not the term I would use because that mainstream, that doesn't have a real great connotation on the right either. What I would characterize Marco Rubio as is he is a Reagan conservative in the sense that he is not angry. Which is another one of my pet peeves. One of my problems with the Tea Party is that they're all about anger and fight and purity and in politics purity is not possible. Purity is not possible in politics. You've got to make compromises sometimes. You try to minimize it, but you've got to compromise sometime. That's just the nature of politics. You can't get everything you want. The idea is to get as much as you can and then keep coming back for more. Paul Ryan said that after the omnibus debacle. And when he said that, I thought, yeah, that's it. Keep the chains moving in football terms. Keep the chains moving. That's the idea. And Marco Rubio is in it. That's where he is. Keep the chains moving. Get what you can and come back and the next time and try to get more. Always be applying the pressure. But if you have to compromise in order to get half a loaf and that's the best you can get, then that's the best you can get. Fight for what you can get, all that you can, but don't be an idiot. Don't be unrealistic about it. And so Marco Rubio is not an establishment guy. He's not a rhino. He's just not an angry conservative, which is part and parcel, I think, of why he's more electable. And no, I'm not saying Ted Cruz isn't electable, okay? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that polls indicate Marco Rubio is more electable than Ted Cruz is. Ted Cruz is still electable, he's just not as electable. And of course, Donald Trump is Ebola. He's not electable at all. which is why I don't understand why so many Republicans continue to support him. I mean, do they want if the idea is to win in November? I mean, isn't that the idea? Or is the idea just to piss in the faces of the establishment? Term that needs to be expunged from the English language. So, if you're looking, bottom line is, if you're looking for an explanation for the burn feeling and for Markomentum, this one makes a great deal of sense. Okay. Oh, I was stuck there for a minute, but I finally dislodged it. Now, I tell you what, in fact, I invented another term today, and it's a psychiatric term. I call it Trumpophrenia, which is on full display, has been on full display this week following the Iowa caucuses, the Republican side of them. Now here is the old and busted. Old and busted. Ted Cruz is a crazy, nasty, lying, cheating, election-stealing Canadian invader. The new hotness. Oh, I've always liked Cruz, and I haven't ruled him out as VP. Or maybe I should say newest hotness, as late last night it was just, I'm over Iowa. This quote comes from CNN. The day after accusing Ted Cruz of winning the Iowa caucuses unfairly and asking for a rematch in the state, Donald Trump says he's now over it. I'm so much into New Hampshire, that I don't care about that anymore, Trump said in an interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper in Manchester, just 5 days out from next Tuesday's primary contest there. This is the place I'm focused on now. In Thursday's sit-down with CNN, Trump said some strange things appeared to have happened in Iowa, that the Cruz campaign's actions likely hurt him more than Ben Carson. I like Ben Carson, well, other than when he's attacking people with a butcher knife, right? Very much, and he got pretty roughed up, frankly, Trump said. Although it affected me maybe more than Ben. But who cares? Well, Trump does, for starters. Or he wouldn't have brought it up again. Nobody asked him about that. He brought it up himself. Now, I interpret this as his managing to breathe into a paper bag yesterday and take a good look at the fallout from his Wednesday outburst, his Trumper tantrum, as well as the direction of his post-Iowa poll numbers, and realizing that he needed to stop digging, as it were, and belatedly focus on New Hampshire in order to avoid an Iowa sequel that could finish off his campaign within the space of barely more than a week. Now, including another belated bowing to the efficacy of conventional, traditional, and dare I say, anti-populist politicking. Throughout his campaign, Trump has largely avoided smaller town hall-style events where his complete lack of depth on any issue could be exploited. He's all about, I mean, there's a reason why Donald Trump is so heavily into Twitter, because he's all sound bites. 30-second sound bites, 140-character sound bites. That's what he does. He doesn't have any deep policy knowledge. He doesn't do his homework. He's Donald Trump. I mean, it's just his natural awesomeness. I mean, he just can do it all instinctively. I mean, that's just how awesome, a guy he is. His roaring narcissism, in other words. But since coming in second place to Cruz in Iowa, Trump appears to be acknowledging the importance of retail politics and one-on-one time with voters. Trump was initially set to hold 2 campaign rallies on Thursday, but late Wednesday, the campaign announced an additional 3 campaign stops, including the interview with CNN and a visit with local business leaders, which isn't really... Does that qualify as retail politics? Maybe they're retailers. I don't know. In any case, it's too little too late. Real presidential candidates spend the preceding year in the Granite State. Trump isn't going to pick up much from trying to make up for not doing so with a fast and furious 5-day blitzkrieg. He's going to have to rely on what brought him to this dance, which will probably be enough to avert a death spiral, in other words, losing New Hampshire as well, but not to put him back on the table-running spree he was looking at before. In other words, he'll probably win New Hampshire, but it'll be a lot closer than anybody thought it would be. And watch how well Rubio does, folks. But don't think that Trump is over Iowa, ladies and gentlemen. What we've seen from him this week is probably how Mitt Romney felt after his 2 Iowa failures. It's just that Governor Romney didn't publicly vent each and every last syllable of it on social media. He had a normal adult human being's discretion. He didn't let him see him sweat, in other words. Donald Trump isn't capable of discreetly going to the bathroom, much less publicly venting every thought and emotion that flits through his coiffed noggin. He's a rookie. He's a political rookie, having entered a business he thought was easy peasy lemon squeezy for a man of his mastery of everything, right up until votes actually started being cast, and then learned the hard way that it was a lot tougher than he thought it was. And now he's struggling with wrestling his titanic ego into enough submission to enable those lessons to actually sink in, and having to do so in a very compressed stretch of time. Or perhaps he's still in an utter screaming rage and is just trying to put up a brave front to try and conceal it, which would help explain the aforelinked bit of Cruz word condescension. I mean, isn't that condescending to say that, oh, I have always liked Ted. I think he'd make a great vice president. Isn't that kind of condescending? Isn't that kind of taking a shot? Saying that about the guy that just beat you comfortably in Iowa? Here's, let's see. This is from the Politico.com. In a striking reversal of rhetoric, how many times has he reversed his rhetoric over the past 8 months? It's legion. Donald Trump would not rule out Ted Cruz as his hypothetical vice presidential pick. Well, I don't know. Look, I have nothing against him. It was sort of a sad thing that happened, but I've always liked him, Trump told Hugh Hewitt on his radio show yesterday after weeks of trashing his primary rival as nasty, hypocritical, and disliked. Yeah, you know, he said he's crazy. Nobody likes him. He's not even an American. In essence, he called Ted Cruz an illegal alien. The Manitoban candidate. Trump added that he has always gotten along well with Cruz, but that I'm so much now focused on New Hampshire. You think so? Notice how many times he said that? How many? You know, Alma Pundit had a great way of synopsizing this. Given how serious the accusations are, election fraud, Cruz unhinged, Cruz is crazy. Nobody likes Cruz. Cruz is a cheater. Cruz stole Iowa. Cruz isn't even from this country. Blah, blah, da, 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 da. These are not trial balloons Trump is floating. They're trial zeppelins. And then a few days later, when it doesn't work out as well as he planned, he turns around and essentially says, "What Zeppelin?" Or maybe he's just insane. I'll tell you, it's difficult for me to believe that Donald Trump listens to anybody. But somebody must have told him, look, forget about Iowa. Iowa is Iowa. You only got 2 delegates fewer than Cruz did. Focus on New Hampshire. If you spend the whole week obsessing about Iowa and just don't pay attention to New Hampshire at all, I mean, New Hampshire is more, at least as retail politics a state as Iowa is. If you blow them off obsessing over Iowa, you're going to have an instant replay in New Hampshire. I don't know if he came to that conclusion on his own or if somebody pulled him aside and said, look, and told him that because, no, he doesn't. I mean, he's Donald Trump. He doesn't. Nobody tells Donald Trump what to do, but maybe they just said, hey, do you want to win in New Hampshire? Then start focusing on New Hampshire. So now he says it like a parakeet every other sentence. Heck, every other word almost. So, maybe he's just insane. Either way, it should make tomorrow's debate must-see TV. New Hampshire primary, of course, Tuesday, not Monday, so we'll have the preview on Monday. In the meantime, let's see, what is it? 19 hours and 2 minutes from now, the Saturday afternoon radio extravaganza comes round again, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. Join us then. Have a great weekend. Carolina over the Broncos, minus the points, -4. I hope it turns out the other way. We'll talk about it on Monday.